Hello and welcome to the Introduction to NET, Neuro-Emotional Technique. This is a stress reduction technique that we use in the office all the time. It's absolutely fantastic, very gentle, very easy, and works really, really well. So it's taught to licensed healthcare practitioners of a variety of different disciplines and fields, including counselors and therapists. I absolutely love using it in my office. It's super helpful to help with any symptoms you have related to any traumas and any unresolved stressful events. So then we go right straight to the question, how do we typically respond to stress? So there's an acute and a chronic version of how we interact with stress, right? So I like to say you got a bear coming up, you have this rapid increase in your heart rate, your breathing, sweating, all kinds of different things happen that prep you for your stress response. Now, that's appropriate in a short-term situation, but what oftentimes happens is, especially in our modern world, we tend to have this chronic stress. And so what happens is the brain starts to release different hormones over time, and we start to have degrading effects on the body over time. So, again, there's so many things happening today that then also remind us. So, for example, let's say, you have a car accident, and you're fine, it's many years later after the car accident, and you get the smell of gasoline or you get the flash of a light, and it can bring up past traumatic events that are unresolved. And that can lead to these chronic stress patterns that happen both in the mind and with body symptoms. So neuro-emotional techniques is a super powerful technique that helps us allow us to connect right inside to that conditioned emotional response and help stop those patterns that keep recurring over and over again. Now, there's some really, really cool research into this mind-body stress-related connection, and there's some cool stuff that neuro-emotional technique has actually done and published in PubMed. You can go and check this out, and it shows how you can change traumatic stress responses from a physiological perspective inside of people. You can see here in the very beginning in this figure 1 that they were activated with a stressful thing that was related to their situation. And then after they did the NET treatment, you can clearly see that when they were checked with that same stress, that situation did not happen in figure 2. So some really, really cool things happening when you give a person a stress, you clear that out, and then you give them that stress again, it doesn't cause them problems anymore. I don't know about you, but this is pretty awesome. And so there's a bunch of different cool results in relationship to that. Some additional research on PubMed, if you want to go check it out, on how that works. It's really cool. Part of it uses heart rate in response. So another way in which they checked whether or not a person was stressed out was, you can see here in the section 6, this is when they were reminded of their distressful situation, and you can see what happened to their heart. Now what happens is after an NET treatment in figure number 2, they gave the same distressing situation, and look at that. Awesomely, it is so much better. So you can find additional information there on the website, onefoundation.org. Now, there's a couple of different things that I'm just going to skim over in relationship to NET. For example, the concept that emotions are based in physiology. There are certain brain hormones and different chemicals that happen in the body in real time when we get stuck in it or when we get exposed to a stressful situation. Now, there's some other things that happen. Maybe you've heard of Pavlov's dogs in response to training a stimuli when they rang a bell with the dogs and made them salivate. This is how our bodies work as well. Now, additionally, from a Chinese medicine perspective, the Chinese medicine doctors knew that the system of emotions, they flow through the body in a specific way. So, for example, the correlation with liver and anger. And so when we get stuck in a certain emotion, for example, in that liver, the liver can get overloaded and emotions can get stuck there. So we use that same dynamic from Chinese medicine. Now, this is the chart that you'll see on the wall that's associated with, based on Oriental medicine, how acupuncture meridians line up with specific emotions that may be stuck in certain body parts. Now, also this idea of repetition compulsion. So what does that mean? It means that when we've been emotionally traumatized, not consciously, but non-consciously, we tend to repeat certain patterns over and over again. And so those are some of the things we pick up on and work on changing as well. Also, the role of memory in physiology. It's important to understand that, kind of like on a computer where you store something in a hard drive, that original event is stored in the body. So we perceive it in a subconscious perspective, and we can bring that experience and event back up and clear it out. Now, just like the memory of, if you think about in this moment, if you stop and close your eyes and you think about a lemon, and you think about cutting into it, and you see the juice squirting out, it's on your fingers, it gets wet, and you take a big bite, right? My mouth is salivating from that idea. So it's really, really awesome to understand that that's a normal, natural physiological response to the memory of a lemon, even though you don't necessarily have it right now. Your brain doesn't necessarily know the difference. And so our body's stress response works exactly the same way with past traumas. Now, we also use something called muscle testing here in the office, and this is a response where we look for an initial strong muscle in the clear, and then certain stressors inhibit the ability for that muscle to stay what we call congruent. And so when we say non-congruent statements, the body crashes down in relationship to that. So in NET, all memory events are considered to be an emotional reality. So that may or may not necessarily correlate with actual historical reality. That's an important piece to understand. I'm going to say it one more time. Emotional reality may or may not necessarily be actual historical reality. So we're not dealing with actual historical reality. We're dealing with the emotional reality, which is where all the trauma is stored anyways. So it's important to understand that we're not doing this from a true-false perspective. We're looking specifically for congruent or non-congruent involuntary reflexes. Just like when you do the patella reflex, if you've been to a doctor and you've had that patella reflex on the knee, it's involuntary. That's what we're looking for. That's how we interact with this. Now, semantic responses means that, for example, if you look and you see a spider and you're afraid of spiders, right? The physiology of the body is going to react to that particular piece, and that's a really important piece of understanding to understand when we're working with that idea of the congruent or non-congruent. The non-congruent statement or idea is going to weaken that physiological muscle response. Now, in natural medicine, there's a concept called like cures like. And in NET, we use like cures like to bring up a stressor, clear it out, and then we do additional remedies that really support that together. Now, if you'll go see my additional video that we're going to attach to this, you can actually see a demonstration of that NET process. Or you can go to their actual website and look and see some additional information there. Now, please feel free to contact the office if you'd like to actually see an NET demonstration and or watch the video. So this is super powerful to be able to understand how this process works, because we do it fairly quickly here in the office, and to know that this is something that works really exceptionally well. Thank you for staying with us as we've talked about all the basics of neuroemotional technique, and we're excited to help you clear out your stress and your trauma. Dr. Fisher, signing out.